Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that panel. There was a slight change in the plans tonight with the extended version of the creator panel you just watched. Instead of tomorrow, it will actually be available right after GBF closes in just 3 hours via Nixie's second channel on YouTube, the second channel on YouTube. Folks, my name is Thunder McFadden, and I am joined by Dr. Anthony Bean. Dr. Anthony Bean is a licensed clinical depth psychologist, video game researcher, and the executive director at the Talos Project. He has been consulted as an expert at the national and international level, being sought after as a speaker in the United States, Canada, and also in Russia. Dr. Bean holds a doctorate in psychology in clinical depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute and specializes in the therapeutic implications of video games and gaming, working with children and adolescents. He created Geek Therapeutics, teaching clinicians and parents how to relate to their clients and families. Dr. Bean has also authored multiple academic articles, book chapters, and 4 books. Dr. Bean, welcome. Dr. Anthony Bean, welcome. How are you? It's good to see you. It was nice to see you in that panel. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's just like I came off of it. I feel super refreshed. It's
Yes.
really kind of crazy.
I know, right? Yeah, well, you look fantastic. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
Had a quick wardrobe change, too. It was amazing.
The fast change. We know about
like
it.
lightning.
Yes, absolutely. So I gave just a brief explanation of what you do, right? That's the technical blurb. So give me, if you would, maybe a little kind of expanded version of that. What does your day-to-day entail and that type of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I am the CEO of Geek Therapeutics, and we basically take anything that's geek and we turn it into a therapeutic endeavor. So whether it's video games, RPGs, anime, comics, superheroes, you name it, we can use it. And so my main days, I work as a clinical psychologist. By nights, I am a geek therapist and doing all sorts of fun stuff and creating a lot of awesome different trainings for people. And we're the only one in the world that is basically APA, NBCC, ACE, and Association of Play Therapy approved for our trainings, which basically means they've seen our stuff. They are like, holy cow, this is the best thing ever. We're going to approve it so people can get continuing education with us.
Awesome. That is so cool. How long exactly have you been at it, and what has the process been like to get into this as well?
So we have been training people on this for over a decade, but we created the Geek Therapeutics right around 2019 because we were getting so many submissions for trainings across the world. And it has been a slow start, and it has just ramped up. We had massive growth last year. We're already in the process of growing again. And there are over 120 hours, I want to say, of continuing education credit that people can get. Never mind, we train people how to do therapeutic game mastering and how to use, let's say, D&D or another RPG as a therapeutic endeavor for clients or for just playing with your friends in some capacity.
Interesting. Very interesting. So an RPG as therapy is what you're telling me.
That's right.
And so explain that to me. I've played a number of hours of World of Warcraft in my day, right? Obviously, very popular role-playing MMORPG, clearly. But so tell me, okay, you're going to take an RPG, you're going to use it as therapy. How does that work?
So we basically will go and look at the person's characters, who they play as, what type of spells they choose as. Because, as a spellcaster, you can be a wizard, you can be a mage, you can be a warlock, you can be a lot of different things.
Of course.
That tells us a little bit about who you are as a personality, individual, and how you interact with the world around us. Sure. And it actually matches up really, really well. And it then helps us to understand, well, maybe I'm distant in this capacity, and this is how I play to reinforce that. And maybe we need to try a different character to see what it feels like to maybe be a tank.
I love it. I love it. That is amazing. And I would never have thought of it that way, or maybe I would have, I mean, in my time, just specifically talking about WoW, right? I remember talking with my friends and being like, I play a druid. And I think to play a druid, you kind of got to be at least a little weird.
You have to. That's my main character too. So if we're druids, I mean, yeah, that's what I do, because I can tank, I can heal, I can boomkin, or I can be a cat. I mean, like, I've got all 4. Why would I play another character?
Right. See, and and people get it twisted. Well, they're like, well, you're just a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? And I'm like, well, I like to be able to fill the roles, and I like to be able to,
that I would say that's only true there, Thunder, when they took away the bear tank's ability to be able to swipe behind you as well to grab everybody.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. Well, we are welcoming everyone in. Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good. Hey.
Good.
Amazing. So I guess who has the first question? Should we do you want to go with Dr. Goku maybe with the first question, or how do we feel, folks?
I was gonna say if they could potentially introduce themselves so people actually know who they are, but also what their specialties are, because Geek Therapy, what this whole panel's about, is encompasses quite a bit. We're talking like anime, comics, everything. So everyone here really has a really high specialty in something special here.
I love it. So do we want to start with Dr. Goku? We'll do the introductions and everybody can kind of go around?
Sure. So my real name is Dr. Jean-Luc Williams. I'm better known as Dr. Goku online. I am a licensed psychologist, and I am the co-founder, vice president of Guardians MH. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that provides peer support and resources throughout the gaming community. And one of our biggest claims right now is our free mental health kits. We're working on version 4 as of now, where people can request these kits and they can get either a digital version right then and there from our website, or they can get a physical one with actual physical items mailed to their house free of charge.
Amazing. And what does one of these mental health packets include? Or that explain that to me.
Oh, well, let me actually get one out.
Yeah, visuals even. I love it.
You're gonna get the whole package on this one.
Awesome. Great.
Right now, we're reworking our main mental health kit. So we've done like 3 iterations of it. And this current one, we partnered with Bungie Studios to have a officially licensed one for Destiny the game. So mainly it comes in this packaging, and it brings a whole bunch of resources. So this one is, again, Destiny focused. We have promos for the game, handouts for like the Games and Harassment Hotline, a journal. We have a coloring book that's been made by artists from the Destiny community that have donated things to us. A exercise program. Oh, RTX is there we go. So yeah, a exercise program, just our pamphlet. Each kit is hand assembled, so you get a card that tells you who assembled it, and this one was assembled by Sadie. So Joe, our president's 5-year-old daughter, was the one that helped make the kit. Letter of encouragement. That one's in Spanish. So a safety plan. A gratitude inventory. We have some grounding exercises, some breathing exercises. We have 2 of them. We have the stop technique, a guided meditation.
Ooh.
And in terms of physical items, we have a bracelet, a pen, some colored pencils for the coloring book, and then we have a fidget item. So for the people that play Destiny, this one looks like the in-game currency Glimmer.
Yep.
Sweet.
And it is very addicting.
It looks addicting from here, and I can't grab it through the internet, but I would love to have it. Seems amazing. And I love that there are a lot of different things touched on in there, not only the mental health, which is what we're focusing on today, but also the physical health, right? Some exercises for gamers to do and that sort of thing. Really awesome. Very cool. Thank you for that. Moving on, how about Lindsay G? We'll go next with you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Grove. I'm a school psychologist in Colorado. And I run Dungeons and Dragons groups with my students, as well as use video games in my groups and Pokemon the card game in my groups.
Wow, very cool. Okay,
yeah.
So D&D and Pokemon,
and video games.
And what age groups did you say again?
They're all elementary school kids, so kindergarten through 5th grade. I'm doing Dungeons and Dragons with 4th and 5th grade right now. I use the video games with everyone from my 1st grader, actually from my kindergartners up.
Very cool. Very cool. I got kind of my jaw dropped for a second thinking about D&D and my wife is a kindergarten teacher, so kindergarten, first grade, and trying to do some sort of D&D seems like reckless with that age. But I love it. Okay, 4th and 5th grade. Awesome.
I'm doing it with a whole class of 4th graders right now, and it is a little bit like herding cats. So yes, I can't imagine doing it with kindergartners.
Oh, amazing. Awesome. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Starfire, we'll go with you next.
Yes, hi. My name's Heather, better known as Starfire in the gaming community. I am a licensed mental health counselor, certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor, certified geek therapist, and certified therapeutic game master through Geek Therapeutics. I'm currently working in a private practice in New York. I work with all age groups and incorporate all kinds of different geeky elements into my therapeutic practice. But I guess I'm best known for incorporating anime, video games, and recently incorporating cosplay. But I will be starting D&D groups myself as well in the future.
Very cool. Love that. A lot of D&D in this group. Cool stuff. Excellent.
Yep.
Hey, I think D&D is fantastic. I've only played a couple of times. I've only had groups to play with like once or twice, but I've had fun every time I have done it. Last introduction that we need to do, last definitely but not least, Charlene McPherson. Charlene, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm kind of starstruck at the moment, but I'm good. I'm Charlene. I also do RPG therapy in my own private practice, Nat 20 Therapy. I am currently in the Geek Therapeutics Game Master Certification Program. I'm excited to finish that, but I've also been certified as a therapeutic game master through Game to Grow as well. And I run most of my groups with adults age 25 and up because there's no resources out there for us. And so I want to make sure we have some resources. I am also looking to introduce more than just D&D. Fiasco I'm looking at. We did Call of Cthulhu last night in one of our trainings. That was pretty fun in Geek Therapeutics. So definitely kind of spreading the fun around, not just D&D.
Awesome. I love that. Fantastic. Thank you, Charlene. I'll go back to Dr. Anthony Bean. Anthony, may I call you Anthony?
Sure, absolutely.
Anthony, was there any place that you wanted to start specifically in talking about mental health and gaming geek therapy in that today?
That's just kind of basically going over what geek therapy is, and then we'll kind of like round robin it almost, like without any of the negative consequences of that. Of course, because we don't want that right now, and just kind of having a little bit of a fun with how we have worked with clients in this capacity, and what we've seen with a lot of them becoming better people of who they want to be through these different types of cultural artifacts, because that's super important.
It seems that way. So so harnessing this stuff through geek therapy, right? What is the, if I'm coming to you and I'm struggling or that type of thing, and we want to dive into geek therapy for me, either as a streamer or as I am also an actor and voice actor in that, right? And I know you touched on some of those things in the panel. Where do you start with me?
We would probably all start with the clinical intake, and we'd kind of get an idea of what symptoms. Let's see everybody shaking their heads like, yep, this is where we start. We go and find out what are the main issues, and within all of our clinical intakes, we're going to probably utilize or ask questions around geek areas that we may or may not be interested in. So I have a lot of clients myself who are interested in anime, and so I have to watch a lot of anime right now, things that I didn't even know existed. And I already watch a lot of anime or playing video games or something else. And then we tend to curate the sessions in a more nuanced and informed manner to be able to bridge the gap between, let's say, our mental health symptoms and these other ideas that we tend to use, whether it's an anime character inside of a show of creating a trope, or maybe it's our D&D character of who we want to be, or it allows us to play a different part of ourselves that normally life doesn't allow us to get to.
Yeah, and I like that. I think that's something that we don't think about directly. We touched on a little bit ago, right? But we don't think about it directly as, okay, right, this character that I just built is an extension of me. Why? Well, because this is what I wanted to play. I wanted to play a sorcerer in this particular campaign of D&D, or I wanted to play this in World of Warcraft. I wanted to, emulate this particular anime character, that sort of thing. So Starfire, you said you do a lot of work with anime as well, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so how does that connect with what you're doing? What Anthony was just saying, directly connecting into what you do you find?
Yeah, so I am definitely getting to know a lot more animes. Some more obscure ones from the clients that I get. I feel like, when I get a client and they tell me about an anime that they really truly love, whether it's something that I've seen or not seen, I feel like that's kind of a gateway into who they are because they connect for a reason, right?
Mhm.
And we can find out a lot about them through watching these animes and especially finding out like what characters they're drawn to and why. Um, I've utilized it in many different ways. Most notably, combining dialectical behavioral therapy with My Hero Academia. That was actually spawned by a 12-year-old boy that I had who loved My Hero, and I loved that he loved My Hero, and it kind of blossomed from there.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that. Now, okay, so we've talked a little bit about anime and some of that stuff that kind of pertains a little bit more for the older crowd. Lindsay, I do kind of want to kick it over to you in talking about the younger groups, right? What struggles maybe do you run into, and in kind of accessing those things with young minds, obviously, that they
Yeah.
don't communicate like we do, and they won't for at least probably 10 plus years, right?
And you also have to consider that because I work in a school, most of the clients I work with are in the special education process. So a lot of them also have academic and learning and speech delays. I think what works for me is that in schools, my work is a lot more like a lot less traditionally therapy, but a lot more skills based. But then the other drawback to that is in schools, I'm very time limited and I don't have a 50-minute session with my kids because teachers will not let me take that much time out of their day.
Right.
So I have to kind of cram everything into a 30-minute time period. I think how I kind of get around that, especially with the younger kids, is I do a lot of this is what like prepping the session and then debriefing the session. So like this is what we're going to do today. Okay, we're going to play, the two of you first graders are going to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is an idea I stole directly from Dr. Bean. We have to split our controllers on the Switch. What do you think this practice is? And then at the end of our group time together, how do you think you did? What was hard? What did we practice today is one of my big questions. And even the first graders can get like, oh, we practiced like talking to each other and we practiced communicating so that we could go places where we wanted to. You just when you work with little kids, you just have to kind of get those flexibility and adaptive skills like really well honed because nothing ever goes the way I plan it.
Of course, yes. I'll mention her one more time, but my wife is a kindergarten teacher, and she has to pivot so many times daily. It is amazing and it is incredible. So
try being a dungeon master.
Yeah. And I keep going back to that, thinking about, man, my last dungeon master was a master of like 4 or 5 of us adults who didn't know quite what we were doing and was very patient with us. Yeah, imagine me 6 years ago, something like that. Crazy. So what I want to do now.
That's what it's like dungeon mastering for 4th graders.
Right? Of course.
I don't know. The adults can have the same type of attention span sometimes too.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Right? There was I want to just, Lindsay, kind of piggybacking off of this and going with a question from the chat that can go actually to everybody. But we'll start with you, Lindsay. Somebody asked, what is your experience with patients who have autism specifically?
That's actually a large portion of my my client base. My school has a specialized program for students with significant intellectual disabilities and autism. I'm still kind of working on how to integrate it fully with those students, mainly because those are my students that are the most verbally impacted. Um, but for students with kind of higher functioning skills that maybe have the skills to be in a general education classroom most of the day, but also struggle with kind of reading those nonverbal cues, that theory of mind, being able to tell, like, read what people are thinking. Dungeons and Dragons actually works really, really, really well for that, because not only do you have to kind of pay attention to what the NPCs are doing, but you have to pay attention to like how your group is doing too. I had one of my 5th grade boys ran up into a guard. We were playing Acquisitions Unlimited or Incorporated module, and he ran up into a guard, and the guard kept saying, "Well, is your name this? Are you on the list?" And he kept launching into his whole backstory about how his village was destroyed by and he was raised by tieflings. And no, he's not on the list. So he was getting nowhere. And I'm like, oh my God, like, come on, process. Like, let's go. It took him until the next week to be like, yeah, I wasn't really listening to him. But that, I mean, it's really interesting when you tap into a client's interests, and this goes to the D&D or the anime or any of the pop culture that they use. It's easy to use that as a door to teach skills and teach positive mental health behaviors.
Love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, Lindsay. We have not heard from Dr. Goku or Charlene for a minute, so I want to open it up to you two, and also Anthony or Star. Do any of you specifically have that experience with autistic patients or autism in general that you would like to touch on?
I don't typically treat people that are autistic. I do have some autistic individuals that are kind of more functionally inclined, because I work in one part of my private practice is I do a day at a university here. So they
Okay.
are in university, they are adjusting to it, but they seem to be hitting these barriers. And a lot of them are kind of hitting these barriers kind of for the first time, because for a lot of them, they've kind of flew under the radar. So their autism kind of flew under the radar, and they're hitting university and they're hitting these challenges. And I found that using geek therapy helps them kind of connect with things in a different way that isn't like strictly psychoeducation coming from a textbook,
Nice.
because they
Very,
can
very nice.
kind of they can link it to something they know, and then they can use this as a mirror to help them process through the information.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
and that's what for me, I've only had a couple of clients that were neurodiverse on the spectrum. They definitely were practicing a lot of social skills, a lot of how to interact with people, and of course, Dungeons and Dragons, I always say, is or any RPG is a great option, because you have those social rules are written down, and there are no doubts about it. And so that gives them an open, safe space to practice, saying things and being a certain person, and doing what they really want to do, without having those like real world consequences.
Because I had one student actually tell me this week where this is kind of the first time they're looking for an autism evaluations, or referring out to get them evaluated. And one of the questions I asked is, well, when you approach a social situation, how are you seeing it? And the way they were explaining it is essentially a flow chart in terms of meet person here, say X. If X doesn't work, try Z. And they were kind of going down this list.
Yeah, that's
So
scripting. In
Yeah.
a sense, it's a script that they've learned in a schema that they've been able to function in a lot of different ways, and that's what they've known. I work with adults and children who are neurodiverse, and they are some of the best people, in my opinion, that to ever work with, because they're going to challenge you as in ways as a therapist that you'll never be challenged in other ways. Yeah, everyone has depression. Yes, everyone has anxiety. Those things come up. You get bored of that type of thing. But when you start pairing it with geek therapy, there's a whole nother ballgame with that. But with the neurodiverse crowd, anime itself has all of the different ideas within the anime, overt facial expressions, ability to read them a lot more than what we can do in a one-on-one conversation. RPGs, video games, they create a great schema for tropes for us to be able to understand, oh, my family members very much like this person from this anime. So if I understand how that person's going to react in such situations, I know how to interact with that person now on some level. And that's really the goal of what we're doing, is we're giving them a model to understand what they have to do. And so they can use what we call their superpower, aka their neurodivergence, in a manner that is beneficial for them, but also the people around them.
Wow. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Star, did you want to touch on that as well at all, with that connection to anime and that?
Yeah, I mean, I could. I don't have a lot of experience with autistic individuals. However, I do have several who are high functioning um, autistic teenagers. And mostly what we're working on is emotional regulation. And I found that a really fun way to do that is through their interests. So, like, for example, I have a 13-year-old who's very much into Pokemon. So I had her conceptualize her favorite coping skills into what a Pokemon might look like who encapsulates that coping skill. I gave her a printout of a blank Pokemon card. And she drew the Pokemon, she named it, she said what the abilities were, and what coping skill that was supposed to represent. And then I had her actually catch the Pokemon with an empty Pokeball that I had given her. So she can choose that Pokemon when she's in distress.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's amazing. Do any of the rest of you have any strategies or things like that that you do?
I did something similar
less
with
with
Harry Potter.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nice.
I
No,
did
I'll
one
tell you what.
too.
Well, why don't we start with Lindsay and then
Um,
we'll jump up to Dr. Goku. So Lindsay, and then we'll jump to Dr. Goku. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we just kind of made paper mache wands, and then this is with first graders, and then I had them come up with kind of coping spells, which went really rough at first because they're 7. But basically, what I ended up doing is had them give me the words, and then I used Google Translate to translate them into Latin. So they
Cool.
sound like spells now. So now we kind of have our own list of spells. And that's kind of one of our opening things. Like, okay, give me a word. Like, before we get into our game for today, let's come up with a spell.
I love it. I love it. Fantastic. Dr. Goku, you were next on that one.
Sure. Yeah. I don't typically do a lot of these things because I work with an older population. Typically, it's
Yep.
around 17, 18 or older. But an exercise that I use often is one coming from Harry Potter, which is the Mirror of Erised.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I often have them look at the mirror and saying, all right, so Erised spelled backwards is desire. What do you see? What is that desire? So kind of fundamentally going to those core elements that they may not want to share that they truly desire.
I like that. Very interesting. Very interesting. So back to you, Anthony. We have talked about a number of different things. A lot of fun stuff. There was another question in the chat about ADHD. So kind of going
Mhm.
along the same topic that we just had, but a tangent, obviously. So feel free to touch on that, or if there was anything else specifically that you wanted to go over right here, let us know.
Actually, I wanted to shift this one down to Charlene, because if I know her, which little I do know her, this is one of her areas.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Well, just besides the fact that I have ADHD myself, so it definitely it's one of the only spaces that I feel like a lot of people can use their ADHD creativity and get rewarded for it. That's what they do. They think outside the box. They're problem solvers. They're the fun people to hang around. And I have one person who's in their 30s, right? And he was worried about role playing, and I was like, oh, okay, don't worry, whatever. But like his ADHD totally took over, and he's like, I'm gonna jump off that wall, and I'm gonna jump onto the back of the spider, and I'm gonna like he ended up getting some venom from the spider, let's say it that way. And he just had a blast. And so his creativity and energy actually keep the game going and interesting. And it's so much fun to see people get reinforced positively for something that they probably really get a lot of negativity about. No, that's not the way we do things. Oh, here's the rules. This is how we actually do it. Here's the procedures, right? It's just amazing to see their face light up when they're able to do something and it gets rewarded.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. Fantastic. So we have another question here. What are, and I was actually going to ask you all about this at the very end. I want to know what your favorite video games are, but let's save that. Okay, we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that at the very end. So let's go right now to what are some of your favorite lesser known games that you use in your practice versus some of the more popular ones? And actually, if you want, you can go ahead and touch on some of the popular ones that you use too. Specifically, I know we've gone over this a little bit, but maybe dive a little more into how you specifically use either your lesser known or more well-known game.
I'll go start on this one. In session, I actually really like using a lot of different mini games on Roblox because it has such potential. Whether it's we're going to do a mining simulator for paying attention, perseverance, making sure we figure out what we have to do, or a team sport game. Whether Roblox doesn't really have amazing graphics, so you don't have to really worry about shooting and blood and guts and stuff like that. So it's a great co-op game there. There's also building games in there. There's a whole bunch of different things based upon what the client's needs are in that moment, or how did they have difficulties this week. Was a kid running away because he didn't want to participate with the other people? Okay, well, let's work on that participation. Let's work on that communication skill. Is someone feeling really overwhelmed and having a lot of difficulties being able to regulate their emotional content? Let's do a mining simulator. Let's talk about this as we're doing this, so you can feel monotonous. It can do that. Maybe we need to work on a different idea of being able to manage choosing the right decision at the right time. Let's do a tower defense. It has such great applicability to be able to utilize that in there. Plus, you can use all sorts of different types of AAA games. Anything can be therapeutic if it is used in the right context.
Nice. Nice. I like that. Next, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. What do we, how about Starfire? We'll go next. We'll do that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that because I use a lot of Roblox as well.
Awesome.
I have a lot of fun with Tower of Hell and emotion regulation and frustration tolerance because it is a jump puzzle. And if anyone's ever done a jump puzzle, they can get really frustrating. So having my kids go in there and do it, and then do it while practicing some of the like deep breathing and mindfulness kind of techniques that we've been talking about. I've had my kids get higher than they ever have in the jump puzzle before, and I go in there and do it too. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to watch you do it. I'm in there too, using the same skills because jump puzzles frustrate me too. A lesser known video game, maybe lesser known, I'm not sure. I use Journey a lot. One specific instance was with someone who's actually going through their master's program for mental health and wasn't sure if this was the right field for her. She kind of felt as though maybe she wasn't good enough in her capabilities to be a therapist in going through this program. And I think that's a lot of what a lot of us struggle with when we're initially going through those programs. And Journey, I feel, is a really great game because it really encapsulates kind of the hero's journey, the trials, the tribulations, the mentorship, that not everything is going to go as planned, but that's okay. Because as long as you push through and have this ultimate goal, you can self-actualize.
That's amazing. And I like those aspects that you talk about there within the game, right? Perseverance, looking at a situation, saying, hey, not everything is going to go the way I want it to, but if you push through, if you persevere, right, obviously you can get a lot done. Wow. I love that. I love that, Starfire. Just over. Charlene, how about for you? And then there's another question I'll ask actually later. But let's go with you. Lesser known video games, or if you have a particular, really popular one that you like to use, hit me.
So I'm an old schooler, so I love tabletop games. I'm sorry that those are like my favorite. I do
Nothing to apologize for.
Nothing at all.
I just love the in-personness. I use D&D a lot, obviously.
Yes.
I'm looking into using Fiasco. There's another game that was a Kickstarter game that I don't know if anybody else saw it, but it was called Out of Our Shells. And it actually is a group game where you can bring it to like a party if you don't know everybody around, and you just kind of play this game and get to know each other and answer questions and things like that. I actually use that a lot with my anxiety clients, my social anxiety clients, to go through conversations. You know, how do you have a back and forth? How do you act like you're interested when you're not necessarily interested? You know, things like that. And then for D&D, something that I do individual therapy with my group clients as well. So we have that extra time one-on-one to process what's going on in group and how they think they're doing and things like that. We actually have come up with mechanics. Each person individually have come up with mechanics to kind of represent what they may be struggling with, right? So, you know, as an example, anger issues, right? If you have an impulse for anger, okay, well, you are going to have disadvantage on the roll, but you are going to have a +2 on your damage because you're wilding out and you're going to use all your strength and everything like that. But you may not be as accurate, right? So things like that. And then the opposite is, okay, well, if you focus, then you have more, you know, that you're going to hit it. I'll give you advantage on the roll, you know, and you just do normal damage. So it really is really great to sit down with each person and try and figure out how to represent that thing that they may be struggling with.
I think that's really interesting because what it kind of touches on is this way of saying, okay, and we've actually talked about it before tonight, the idea of, okay, I'm going to reach, or if let's say I'm the patient, right? Talking to me about my character that I've already created versus what you seem to touch on, and correct me if I'm wrong, versus what you seem to touch on right here, Charlene, which is, why don't we create it together and decide, okay, this is what you're coming in for. This is what you want to work on. Why don't we build a character instead of going based on what you already have, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I have them do is I actually give them it's not called Knives, Forks, and Spoons. It's great. I don't know if anybody else uses it, but it's a background story creator. So it just asks, like, what's your character's favorite soup? Like, what is your character's motivation for adventuring? And they answer those questions, and they answer them for their characters, but they're the ones answering the questions.
Yeah.
So more than likely you're going to get, you know, what they're dealing with in there as well, at least a tiny bit. And I tell my clients, you can put as much of you in there as you want, or as little of you, you know, in there, because we talk about, you know, playing your ideal self versus your current self, you know, all those things. But and then I try and throw those things into each. I definitely do a lot of what do you call it? Like where you're focusing on one player and their characters and things like that. And it just, you see their eyes light up and they get excited about, you know, being able to work on this stuff.
Of course. I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you, Charlene. Okay, so now I very specifically have a reason for doing this. I would like to go to Lindsay because of not only the D&D connection, right? But also I want to hear a little bit about the similarities and differences as you're talking, you know, you obviously working with the younger crowd. And then after that, I want to go to Dr. Goku because I have another specific question for him. So Lindsay, hit me. Piggybacking off of that and then letting me know about some of the lesser known games that you use.
Well, and I am a less experienced DM than Charlene is. That was basically my pandemic project, was to teach myself how to DM. So I DM'd before I ever played D&D, which is a little crazy in itself. So most of the time I stick to modules in 5e. So with my fourth graders, I'm playing the starter set with them. And mainly that's because, and we can get into the whole project I'm doing with the fourth graders later, but I'm training 5 fourth graders to be DMs for their classmates.
Nice.
That has
So-
got to be chaos.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, I could talk forever about them. They're doing such a good job. But yeah, having 5 fourth graders playing D&D and then watching them run games with their own groups and kind of like make up their own rules, and like the control part of me being like like okay, like you can't befriend the bugbear. He's like the bad guy. But okay.
But
Right.
why?
Yeah, of course. I love it.
You go. So we've been using the 5e starter set with the Lost Mine of Phandelver for that kind of whole group, just because it's easy to pick up. Then all my materials are right there. And then the kids have access to it, and it was fairly cheap. It's only $20 for the box. So I was able to get 5 kits. In terms of lesser known games that I play with my kids, I found a really great game at an art gallery called Space Team. It's a card game, and basically the idea is you're on a spaceship and you're trying to get home and it's falling apart. So you need to like work with everyone at the table to fix the parts that are breaking, but you're ending up like shouting all over each other to like, hey, I need this part, hey, I need this part, and like passing like crazy. So I mean, that's practicing emotional regulation right there, listening to each other, kind of all that executive functioning. The other board game I play a lot is Forbidden Island. And that's it's a cooperative game where you have to collect 4 treasures and get off an island as it's slowly sinking underneath you. I always have to think about the name because my kids always call it Sink Island. So then I just call it Sink Island.
Yep.
In terms of video games, I have a Wii and a Switch in my office. So on the Wii, we do a lot of Wii Sports. I've been taking some data this year on giving kids a 5-minute Wii Sports boxing break and their self-reported level of anger and frustration before and after the break. And that's really been amazing. Like a lot of them come in, they're like, I'm at a 9. I really need this. I'm at a 9. And then they leave. By the time they leave, they're like, I'm okay. I'm at like a 1 or a 2. And then the Wii bowling is really, really hard. So we practice perseverance, emotional regulation, some motor skills. And then boom blocks on the Wii is good for that too. And then on Switch, the one I really, really like is 1-2 Switch, because it's a game where you have to look at each other. So like, whereas they're used to playing games and we're watching the screen and we're not watching each other, this is really nice. And like, eventually I'll probably get in trouble because my favorite one on there is Quick Draw, where you're a cowboy and you have to like draw your gun. But it really practices those looking at each other's skills.
Nice. Not only do I love your response, Lindsay, but it takes me directly into the question I mentioned earlier. So, Dr. Goku, okay? Now, there's a reason that I saved you for last, mister, okay? And that would be, I do want to hear about the lesser-known video games that you use, but I also, she mentioned it right there. She mentioned some weaponry, right? You mentioned Destiny earlier, and I want this to be a question not only for everybody, but right now for Dr. Goku, and then after that, Anthony. Violent video games. We everybody either loves them or hates them. They are very polarizing. They are very controversial. Okay? Do you use them? Why do you use them? Is there a benefit? Hit me with your take there, Dr. Goku, and then Anthony.
Well, I've always seen the violence in video games as secondary to what you're playing. So if I can just use Destiny as an example. So yeah, there is shooting in the game. You're shooting aliens. But the whole point of the game is how you collaborate with people. So the main thing is raids. And with Destiny, we're coming up to a new content launch next week. There's a new raid coming up in 2 weeks. So you're facing these encounters and you're grouping up with 5 other people and you're trying to figure out these puzzles. The shooting and the DPS is second.
Right.
Let's figure out how to do these puzzles, how to get this mechanic down. So it
Mhm.
really teaches resilience. It teaches perseverance, problem solving, collaboration, and to me, that's the key aspect.
Yeah.
The whole violence, it's cathartic in a way, but
Right.
there's no real correlation with real world violence after you play violent video games.
Right. Right. And for those of us who know violent video games, play them, enjoy them, all of that, that is easier for us to understand than maybe for some others. So
Mhm.
now, going off of that question, and I want to take this to Anthony. Okay, so Anthony, your take on the violent video games, and Dr. Goku was mentioning Destiny, which is more based on your raids, right? So
Mhm.
in that sort of circumstance, somebody from the outside could be like, okay, well, it is about the team thing because it's a PvE or it's whatever, right? But Call of Duty, no, no, no. Or Halo, the 5v5 or whatever. No, never, never, never that. What is your take on the differences between those games, Anthony?
I think that they all have a simple idea behind them, and they all play differently, yes, but still the same idea is behind them. Of usually you're a lone rogue, you've been orphaned, you've been abandoned in some capacity. Therefore, you must band together and overcome this heroic destiny. It's just a heroic journey that all video games have. And if you think about many of the video games that we play, you are either orphaned or singled out or left for dead right early in the beginning because it clicks on us as an archetypal image, and it makes us feel connected to the character, and that's what brings us into that presence or that immersion aspect for us to actually play the game. If most games that don't have that fail very quickly, because you really have with a gamer about 2 to 3 minutes of playing just to either get them in or it's done. They're like, yeah, what's next? That's what you got. With the violence thing, we've done tons and tons of research. Video games do not produce violence. It might increase aggression scores, but aggression does not equate to violent tendencies.
Nope.
We can all have some aggression. This comes from frustration. We all become frustrated. How do we deal with it? What can we do to get there? Yes, I missed that shot. Cool, you were sniping for 300 yards away. A lot of people would have missed that shot.
Right.
And you're gonna get frustrated with the jumping puzzles in Mario.
Yep.
So
Or the Yoshi jump where you have to sacrifice Yoshi.
Oh
Yeah. Absolutely.
No.
Right.
I mean, that just made me go kill dinosaurs. So
Yeah, right. There, yeah. I love that. I love that. Awesome. Okay. So, folks, we have an amazing panel today, and we're dwindling down on a few minutes here. I do want to know, what are your favorite video games? Lindsay, I want to start with you, and then we'll kind of go all the way around. Lindsay, tell me your personal favorite video game, and maybe if there is any sort of therapeutic aspect of it for you, if there is anything that you find in that way in your favorite video game or favorite video games.
Honestly, when I'm stressed out, my go-to game is Skyrim. Just
Okay.
because it's a good escape. You can be a hero. But it might be. I just got the Demon Slayer game for Xbox for my birthday, and I love Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
So that might be kind of taking over.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Starfire, you are next. Your favorite video game. Hit me.
I'm gonna have to say games. I'm a huge MMORPGer.
Excellent.
So you were talking about World of Warcraft before. I was a vanilla player up until
Nice.
Cataclysm, and then came back for Classic. But right now, I'm super obsessed with Final Fantasy 14. I've been playing it for about 5 years. I raid, Savage, Ultimate Fights, you name it, I have cleared it. So those are my games right now. And I just started playing Lost Ark, and I'm kind of getting absorbed into that.
Very cool. Very cool. And I've heard polarizing things about Lost Ark, so I'm glad to hear somebody who is enjoying the game and is willing to kind of stick with it, at least for the time being.
I'm giving it a go. I understand
Sure.
the polarization. I am on some of the fence there. you know, especially with the gender locked classes, I feel like that's very dated.
Yep.
Very dated. And I was very upset because I wanted to be a female paladin, and apparently you can't.
Yeah.
So
What?
yeah,
Not
I
very
know.
2022 of them, is it?
No, it's not. Get woke.
No.
But but Final Fantasy 14 takes up most of my time, so that's okay.
Awesome. Okay, and WoW, obviously, what do you play? What's your main in WoW?
My main in WoW was a holy priest.
Okay.
And in Final Fantasy, I am a Viera white mage. I only play healers.
Awesome.
Except for Lost Ark, there really isn't a healer. I'm a sorceress in that. So
Nice. There you go. Okay. Taking care of the heels. Starfire. I love it. Charlene, you are next. Favorite game and what it does for you.
Right. So
Therapeutically, mentally, however you want to take that question, Charlene.
yeah, so I'm like, I do video games, but it's actually my son's way more into video games than I am. So Fortnite he really likes playing Fortnite with me because we always end up the last like 2 in the game.
For sure.
And he gets really excited. Just RPGs in general. I forgot how much I loved Call of Cthulhu. It is a very good game. It is a little, there's some
It's
stuff
dark.
behind that. It's dark. It's
Sure.
a horror game. But it really does give you the ability to explore yourself, explore how you react to really scary things in life, things like that. And it just is a whole heck of a lot of fun based in, the Cthulhu mythos. But D&D also, I really love playing a bard.
Nice.
So I play the loud, boisterous, like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna sing for you while you
Sweet.
while you fight." So that's just fun for me. Again, with ADHD, like just being able to be creative and create the world around you is amazing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Charlene. Dr. Goku, we'll go to you next.
Sure. So while I love Destiny, some of my favorite games are just sitting over my shoulder there. So Mega Man X and Metroid have been this staple throughout my life. And for me, Metroid is this encapsulation of let's use whatever you have in your arsenal, figure out where you need to go, and figure out the environment around you, which is kind of teaching us resilience in a way that we need to in real life.
I love that. Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Goku.
Yeah.
Dr. Anthony Bean, let's head to you, sir.
Legend of Zelda. Absolutely. It's my go-to. It's what I play. I've played them all so much.
Yeah.
And more recently, I've really gotten back into Pokemon with a new one because it really feels like you're a Pokemon master in this one. And it is charming to go back to that in that childhood on that one. But I also know where we are in the time. And so I also wanted to just say thank you very much for having us all. And if anyone wants to kind of get in touch with us, all of our names are here somewhere on social media, but you can also find us over at Geek Therapeutics on any social media. Just type it in, you'll find us.
Yes, amazing. Thank you to all of you, Anthony, Lindsay, Star, Charlene, and Dr. Goku. Thank you, every single one of you, for your insights and for being a part of this panel. This has been a ton of fun, and I think it's been a good insight for a lot of people into what video games can do. And we're talking across the spectrum, right? From adolescence all the way up to where any of us are right now or where any of us are going. Not like video games are going anywhere and that. So I love it. Fantastic. Thank you to everyone. And take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Amazing, folks. Thank you all so much. And we are going to move things over to Dom. Dom is who I am introducing at this